Hi everyone, Paul from the Data Storytellers here. Today I'm with Giles Pavey, who's the Global Director of Data Science at Unilever, among many other roles he's working on in the AI and data science space. Great to have you with us.
It's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
And I've been really excited about this conversation for some time now. But for those who don't know you, just tell us a little bit about your professional background, your journey, and where you stand now.
Sure. So as you say, I work at Unilever, where I am finding ways for Unilever to use data science, so typically machine learning and non-standard types of data to improve the business. And as you say, I also have a couple of other hats. So I'm an advisor to AI assurance ethics startup called Holistic AI, which I'm very excited about. And then I also have visiting positions with a couple of universities. So I'm the chair of industrial advisors for the AI Centre at University College London. And I'm also the chair of the industrial advisors for Oxford Mathematics, or the Centre, let me get this right, the Centre for Doctoral Training in Industrial Focused Mathematics at Oxford University, which all of those are a lot of fun, and all of them tend to play off each other in terms of, well, in my mind at least, in terms of what I see at one I can bring to another, and vice versa.
And where did you get started in this data journey?
So I've been really lucky, I think, in that really from the start of my career, I've been around data and analytics. So my first degree was in physics, which was very much because I was good at it. And back in the 80s, you had to be pretty foresighted to do anything other than just the subject you were best at school. And then when I decided that maybe I wasn't cut out to be a scientist, I had to think about what I found interesting. And what I found interesting was advertising and the sort of the numbers side of advertising. But at those days, you couldn't study advertising. So I found out you could study marketing. So I studied marketing in Kingston Business School in London. And then the whole of my career has been around the intersection of numeracy, analytics, and understanding and trying to improve human behavior and operational behavior. So I started off in market research, working for a company called Mass Observation, which got subsumed and is now part of Kantar. And then in the mid-90s, I joined Information Resources, IRI, the American grocery audit company, as they set up in the UK as their head statistician. And that was great. I had 5 fantastic years setting up their auditing of UK grocery and health and beauty. And then in 1998, I joined dunnhumby, which at the time was about 30 people. And I joined to head up their analytics for what at the time was their biggest client, Tesco, the UK retailer. And that was a fantastic place, and just went from success to success. So I started off leading a team of 6 analysts, working on Tesco in the early days of the Tesco Club Card. And in those times, we could only analyze 0.5% of all of the transactions that were made on Tesco Club Card. Today, that you could do that on your phone. You could analyze the whole lot of it on your phone. But in those days, in 1998, when I joined, you could only do 0.5%. And so we rode, I guess, Moore's law with computers getting better, and also Tesco's appetite for doing more and more with data. So really we found out that there was no part of the business that couldn't be helped by understanding customers better and using data. And so went from success to success. I headed up the Tesco analytics team that got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I was asked to head up all of analytics at dunnhumby, which was an amazing job and really has been the bedrock, I guess, of my career. 10 years of pretty solidly working with Tesco on all aspects of their business, and then taking that knowledge of Tesco around the world with retailers in every continent, which was a fantastic privilege and a lot of fun. And then in 2011, when dunnhumby sold the business, the new CEO asked me to lead on innovation. And every year I did a presentation to the board on what should be the new big research and development topics. And in the second one of those I did in 2012, I passionately presented as to why this new thing called data science should be where the company was doubling down. And you might well have heard the expression, be careful what you wish for. And at that meeting, they said, oh, you're so right. And by the way, you're no longer the head of innovation. Can you become the chief data scientist? So we were lucky at that time. We had maybe a couple of dozen data scientists, although at that time they didn't call themselves data scientists, sort of statisticians and machine learning experts. We brought them into one team and recruited some more. So I had 5 fantastic years as chief data scientist at dunnhumby. Then I left dunnhumby in 2016 and looked for my next challenge. And that took me, I was guided by I think it's Japanese philosophy of ikigai, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, where you look to see, well, what do you enjoy doing? What are you good at? What can you get paid to do? And what does the world need? And for me, that was to do data science for public good. And so that took me to the UK government, where I worked for the Department for Work and Pensions, which is the largest civil service department, not only in the UK, but also in Europe, with a budget of close to £200 billion, 20 million customers who are getting various pensions and benefits, and worked there building a data strategy and also helping to build out a data science community. And that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the funding didn't last. And so I'm a big beneficiary of having a very healthy network of people I've met through the years. And one of those people was a good friend of mine, Andy Hill, who was Chief Data Officer at Unilever, and approached me to ask if I would come to Unilever to help build out data science at that company. So that was in 2018, sorry. And that's been a fantastic opportunity, and is still what I do today. And what's been great is not only have I had that journey in terms of the main thing I do, I guess, or the first thing on my LinkedIn profile, but also for the last, ever since I was doing the role of head of innovation at dunnhumby, I've been encouraged and been able to build out my jobs and responsibilities beyond. So first of all, that was getting involved with University College London and their computer science department. And after that, I had a friend who'd moved into the maths department at at Oxford University, and they asked me to help them, giving them advice on how they could work better with industry. And of course, so much of that is really this role, which I guess is what connects all of my different roles together, which is this role of translation, of knowing enough about the science and the mathematics or the computer science to be able to translate that into how that can be useful for business or for the public sector. And that's the common theme, I think, that goes across all of my work. And then the last part, I guess, of my portfolio has developed about 18 months ago, a startup coming out of the UCL AI Centre, specifically on AI ethics and assurance, called Holistic AI, run by two people I've worked with before, Emre Kazim and Adriano Koshiyama, and got very interested in that area of how do you, in real life, how do you assure AI? It's very easy to say that you want to make sure your AI is fair or that you've got human oversight, but how do you actually make that happen? And had the good fortune of working with them and being able to bring them to Unilever. So yeah, very happy. I'm very, very lucky. I think I've been in the right place at the right time. And as I said, I think I've also been a beneficiary of, over that time, having, obviously I wish I was younger, but one of the benefits of age is that over this time you do, I've been working in data and analytics now for 31 years, 32 years, I think this will be my 32nd year. And over that time, you get to see a lot of things, but maybe more importantly, you get to meet a lot of people and build a network that you can really, especially in data science, it's such a collaborative effort, and you're never going to be the person who knows everything. So that's been really good.
Yeah, it's super interesting. You've got a super diverse background working within data, for the government, for consumer goods, for marketing. How do you see data analytics today? Because a point you made earlier was about you see yourself as a translator of data for the business. Do you think that's the same across data analytics today, or what do you think about the state of the data function in most businesses?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think over the course of our discussion, you're going to consistently find that I have a lot of just simple, maybe even kind of apple pie kind of truisms that I tend to live my business life by. And I think it's fair to say that every organization that I've been involved with is constantly trying to do more, but with less. And while there is no silver bullet, I do tend to find that the closest thing to a silver bullet is to use data and analytics to understand the situation and then to deliver a improvement on the situation. So when I was at Tesco, working with at dunnhumby, working with Tesco, I would talk about Tesco can win by understanding their customers better than anybody else, and then delivering on that understanding. So what do people want, and then actually using data science to deliver what they want. So whether that's better recommendations or better ranges or better promotions. All of those things both rely on an understanding of the situation. And oftentimes that's a bit more than just taking the data at face value. You have to understand the context of what's going on. And then actually delivering on that. And, some of those obviously require data science, like a recommendation engine. Others, it's less obvious that data science is, an integral part. But there's so many things that you can do, whether it's optimization or modeling, forecasting, that can really help. So, and I've found that sort of translation part and that really understanding behavioral systems and then improving on that. That's been consistent, whether it's been at Tesco or at in the civil service, understanding what's going on. And now at Unilever, which is obviously there's a big overlap between Unilever making groceries and Tesco selling groceries, but it's not all the same. You have manufacturing and logistics on a massive scale in a company like Unilever. You also have global operations, and analytics and data science can play a massive role in taking learnings from one part of the world or the business to another. So I think there's a lot of consistency. I think that every area that I've been exposed to consistently can benefit from data and analytics, really just because you find out that it's already working and yet people don't fully understand what's going on. So it's not really that surprising that if you have a better understanding of what's going on, you can make it work even better.
So that sounds like a really good challenge for, a really good opportunity for data leaders. What do you think are the key challenges for data transformation leaders? And kind of a second question on top of that, what role do you think that data and analytics leaders play in that?
So I've been fortunate to look at this had experience of this from a couple of different angles. So at dunnhumby, we were consultants to our client businesses, and there, very much, I think, having a top-down sponsorship and buy-in to wanting to move the company to be more analytically driven is key. I think if you don't have that, you get organ rejection of things that you try and implement. You don't need top-down sponsorship to build a model, I don't know, that forecasts demand, but you do need top-down sponsorship to change the process so that demand moves from being on the whim of or just the gut feel of some incumbent people to actually being driven off of a model. Hopefully still with human input in terms of being the best it possibly can be, but a change in that process. So I think it's really important to have buy-in at the top level. I think what's also incredibly important is to have an understanding of the context of the situation. So I always will encourage data scientists that I work with to maximize their knowledge of what the business actually does. So when we were working with Tesco, the single most beneficial day of the year for me was the day just before Christmas, when I worked in my local Tesco store as a helping hand, and I was probably the least effective person in the shop, but it gave me a real understanding of the difference between maybe the model output of what products should be put next to each other, or how you should be running a promotion, or how you should be restocking items, to the actual physicality of how does that work. And that understanding of, what is the business, and how realistic is it to expect data to be error-free. Some data is, really quite realistic for it to be data-free, because if it wasn't error-free, because if it wasn't error-free, then all sorts of systems will break down, and there will be problems with the tax man, or problems with stores with nothing in them. Whereas other systems, you see that the data is a real afterthought, and so that understanding of really how the business works is, I think, really key to being an effective data science leader, because this role of sort of translation between what is technically possible versus what is the process it has to fit into, what is going to be most valuable to the business or the organization, and what might be the order that you need to do things in order to get for the change management to work, I think is one of the most important things for a data science leader. I also think that there's a really key role for data science leaders to be catalysts for talent, to really make sure that talented people can grow within the team. And I think that that's something definitely in the it's probably easier in a kind of consultancy business, but in a manufacturing or a retail business, there hasn't necessarily been a culture of having highly technical people, and career paths and whatever might have been built on span of control, how many reports do you have, etc., rather than necessarily what's the depth of your technical knowledge. So that's a very important thing for leaders to, especially leaders in non-consulting or technical companies, to be very vocal and very dogmatic and really push for making sure it's a great place for technical people to work, playing a very sort of active role in making sure that a community can flourish. I'd say lastly, there is a lot of people who want to go into data science. They'll be very passionate about data science. I think they're particularly unpassionate about company politics or climbing the greasy pole. And so I think there's a role for data science leaders to provide air cover, if you like, for their team in terms of, data science is, I don't think we should ever see ourselves as sort of, completely apart from the rest of the business, but I think it tends to be, it attracts a lot of people who maybe are less well suited to playing the corporate game. And so I think a leader can provide air cover so that the team doesn't have to worry too much about maybe some of the more political aspects of working in a company, and so they can get on with their data science, make sure that they understand the business and understand the context of the business and the data science is going to be in, but provide air cover so they don't have to worry or fret about the politics of things.
That's interesting, because on the one hand you have data science, which is I don't know how accurate this label is, but it's seen as more of an introverted profession, and you have to kind of integrate those skills with, as you say, dealing with the politics and being in the meat grinder, right? So what qualities do you think that, let's call them traditional data scientists, would need to develop in order to function and thrive in that environment?
I definitely think that the understanding the business is a really good way of, it really helps people to be effective in their careers, and I would say also enjoy their careers more. So the good thing about having worked for Tesco and now for Unilever is that you can expect all of your team to have at least some experience of having been shopping or eating ice cream or Marmite or pot noodle. But getting a real understanding of how exactly does the company make money, what exactly are the hard decisions that the business has to make. I think that really helps people to not only be more effective, because the models that they're building can be built with that thought of how are they going to be implemented, but I think it helps people be more creative. I'm a big believer that better data trumps better modeling, and I think that that's a pretty widely held belief. And better data is not just improving the data you've got, but it's being a bit of a Sherlock Holmes and going and finding data. Every process that happens at a business or an organization that involves a computer generates data. Now, whether that data is already neatly siphoned off and put into a data lake or whatever is a little bit secondary to knowing that data should at least theoretically exist, and then having the skills to be able to track it down, the ability to work with the right people to get access to it, and then having the Panda skills or whatever else it might be to actually be able to take that data and and munge it to make it modelable. So I think skills wise, the first skill, or maybe just mindset, I always try and preach to people, say if they're coming in off of a data science MSc, is really get interested in the in what the business does. I think the second thing is to just really try and play your part in the community. Data science is the fact that it's built off of open source, I think is a brilliant thing, not only for the quality of the open source tools themselves, but also to really, it attracts people who are interested in being in community. And I don't think there's any contradiction between being, introverted, well, definitely introverted in the psychological sense, but still wanting to be part and being able to be active in a community. And everywhere I've worked, I've tried to really be a catalyst or a stimulus for building a community where people can ask each other questions, can share things of interest. And I really just want to build a community where, irrespective of what stage I was at my career, I would have liked to have worked there. And one where people are rewarded for sharing and for helping and collaborating, and especially one where we encourage that it's, so if I think about Unilever or Tesco, or in fact working with the UK government, here at Unilever we have a data science community that is about 5 times bigger than the number of people with data science as a job title. So that shows you that data science is not, there's plenty of people who are interested in data science and have the skills and whatever beyond just people who have the job title. So that community building and the open-mindedness and I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, sorry, Paul, but the community involvement and the self-improvement, I think, as well. That's the other thing I would encourage people to do, is just be a sponge and just challenge yourself to keep learning. I definitely encourage people to go to meetups. I think they're, I'm lucky enough to live in London, but there's plenty of virtual meetups as well if you don't live in a big urban area. I think that's a great way of not only keeping yourself up to date with skills, but also seeing, maybe the skills you've already got used in a different context. So I think creativity is often the skill which will help people to progress or definitely be noticed. Obviously you need to do your data science to a high standard and in a validated way, but coming up with creative solutions, think creatively, and just have a go. I think that's another thing that the hacking culture, if you like, has showed us, is just have a go at can I apply this new technique to this data set or whatever else.
By the way, we love tangents here, and I think that was a really positive one to go on, I was actually just interested to find out, what role did these skills play in your success as a professional during your career, whether it was dunnhumby or Tesco or Unilever now? Can you give some examples?
Yeah, I can give you a few. So definitely curiosity and creativity has been probably the single biggest thing to my success on projects. So probably the most impactful project that I've ever worked on was I noticed that if you're in the supermarket and you're standing behind somebody and they're doing their shopping, you can you get a kind of mental image of what it must be like in their house. How are they making choices about what to buy? And then I worked with a very talented team to say, well, if that's the case, and when I talked to other people about it, they thought, yeah, you definitely, you get a feeling for, is it the microwave's always pinging, or is it the children who are making the decisions, or is it all about, what's the provenance of the products, or is it all about time saving? And so from that, over the course of a year, we did a project, this was back in the early 2000s, with Tesco to build what we called the lifestyles. And there were definitely a lot of technical challenges in building that. Fortunately, by that stage of my career, so I was 15 years in, we weren't relying on my coding. We had a fantastic team of people who were coding, and by then it was my contribution was more around creativity and that translation layer. So that was an example where those skills have really been helpful. I think the curiosity in what the business does has really helped me in terms of getting things into operations and getting them used. That is that curiosity, or wanting to really understand the business, and then also being able to do that translation. Sit down with somebody who, so currently in Unilever, we're working on range rationalization. So how can you make sure that you're offering the best selection of products, but you're not offering products which are just overcomplicating things, or maybe aren't making you money. And it turns out that a lot of things that impact the margin that you make on products, you need to really understand how a factory works, and what happens between making an almond flavored Magnum and then retooling to make a double raspberry one, in order to really understand what would be the benefits or not of how you compare those two in data and analytics. So I think that real passion for understanding what the business does, and that was when I joined the Department for Work and Pensions. I made a point of going and doing a couple of days of working in a job centre plus to really try and understand what was happening there, so that I could really try and see how we could bring in things that could not just be theoretically useful, but actually useful to the staff who are there on the front line. So, and then the last thing I would say where a skill has just continued to bear fruit is, I've found it relatively easy to build a network of people by being interested in what's going on, and curious, and trying to translate maybe the data science world into the business world, and back and forth. And that's really been super helpful for me in terms of my career progression and my career opportunities. the last job that I interviewed for, applied to an actual a job interview, sorry, a recruitment ad, and was in 1995. Everything I've done since then has been off the back of people who knew me suggesting I might be interested in something else. And that's been, though, built off of a network that I've sort of acquired naturally. That's my personality. It's driven in part by me wanting to understand processes and really try and understand their businesses. It's also driven by my belief that being able to find extra data is probably more a function of who do you know and who can you ask, rather than necessarily some sort of deep technical knowledge, in my case at least. So that's really where sort of going out and speaking to people and looking for connections, and I always try and introduce people who I think are going to be able to help each other, because I've been a beneficiary of that so much through my time. So that's another thing that I actively try and do.
So that sounds like a lot of your opportunities have come from an element of trust. People trust in you, they trust in your work. Apart from actually doing it, what do you think are some of the best ways to build and facilitate that kind of trust internally?
Yeah, good question. So I think definitely trust is probably the single biggest trust builder, is having empathy. So if you want to build trust, say, with somebody who works in the supply chain and has done it for a decade or more, then I think knowing enough about how a supply chain works to be able to ask sensible questions, and then be humble enough to ask sensible questions where you're acknowledging the fact that they're the expert, and then if relaying that back to them to just check your understanding. I think that's a really powerful way of building trust. That people, I think it's a common thing for data scientists to be seen as sort of sitting in an ivory tower of oh yeah, you don't need to. I think data mining kind of had a bad image of this, of there's this stuff in the data that nobody would ever assume, or never come to, except for these amazing data scientists be able to mine it. But I think that's never really been the case in my experience. Data science, I think, is normally being able to quantify and deliver things that people have probably assumed, but now you can quantify and you can deliver it. I don't think it's a startling revelation to say that if you know what people have bought in the past, you can predict what they might like in the future. That's what we do when we recommend things to our friends, and it's just doing that on scale. And similarly, it's not amazing to be able to suggest that by understanding the weather, you can predict ice cream sales, or better predict ice cream sales. Store managers have been doing that on a single level. What we're bringing is scale. So I think a big part of building trust is being empathetic, understanding the business, doing that translation. And then I would say another part of it is being very delivery focused. And I would say delivery focused in terms of not delivering things that can be implemented. So one of the biggest problems I have seen, or maybe the biggest single problem I've seen through my time of working on data science projects, has not been about the data science, or has not been about the computer science, but it's been about understanding the context and the process. It doesn't matter how good your model is for predicting the impact and optimizing the impact of sales promotions, of whether you should run buy one, get one free, or 20% off, or it doesn't matter how good that is if it doesn't fit into the process of actually how does that change on the shop floor. So, being able to start with things that can actually be implemented on the shop floor, or whatever the equivalent of the shop floor is, and build trust by just improving things, showing those a quick win, to use a hackneyed phrase. And I think the other thing to say is put effort into the way that you present your work. As maybe galling as it might be to many of our colleagues, the key decision makers are likely to be less technical than you. So being able to present in a way which people can relate to, hopefully grab their attention. I think that there's a reason why something like D3 graphics, charts, interactive ones, things that capture people's attention. Typically decision makers are seeing umpteen things a day. Being able to capture their attention, and especially if that's something that is actually live, is a great way of building trust. I think the good thing is at the high level, especially, people get it. They know that the future is about doing more with less, and that the better use of data and analytics through machine learning is, such a key part of that. People at the high levels, at least, they get that. So what you're not trying to sell in the idea of machine learning. You're trying to sell in the idea that your team is capable of delivering machine learning that can work for the business. So I think that's key. And then I think at the operational level, you want to very much be emphasizing that the good news is that in the vast majority of cases, the data science is and the automation is taking away the kind of boring parts of jobs, and you're actually empowering people to be better at their jobs. If you've got a system for pricing, that improves the job of a pricing manager, not kind of dilute it. I think that's the case in most cases. So, as long as you can show that empathy, I think you can. Most people are keen to have the kind of monotonous parts of their jobs automated. So and as long as you can come with that learning mentality, I think you should be in a good position to build trust.
And there's some really good recommendations there, Giles. I've been taking a lot of notes throughout. Last question: what recommendations or advice would you give to data analytics leaders today?
So definitely never stop learning. Challenge yourself. Seemingly the more senior you get, the more the job will take you away from the latest developments in machine learning. So you need to find what's right for you to keep abreast of that. Some of my colleagues are amazing at carving out time to code themselves. I'm not that person. I achieve that through meetups and through having some friends in my network who are very much in, whether it's in academia or in Kaggle or whatever else, who are very much still in the forefront of writing and developing new libraries and whatever. But keeping yourself current on data science is really key. Being that that translator I think it's so key. There's a book I was highly influenced by, and I'm not going to remember who it's by, but it's called I think it's called The 5 Habits of Highly Functioning Teams. But the point that really resonated with me is that unless you're the CEO, if you're a manager, you're both the manager of a team, but also a member of a team that's being managed, of a leadership team. And it's really tempting to put your energies, the majority of your energies, into the team you manage. But actually, the biggest benefit you can be for the team you manage is to be really active in the leadership team that you're yourself a member of, to really put their case and to really, see the bigger picture, so that you can be that air cover, so you can be, really maximize the effectiveness of your team. So that would be another piece of advice. And for me, I'd say that the last piece of advice is to really try and stay positive. I was given this fantastic piece of advice by a good friend and colleague, Max Jolly. And he said, in whatever situation that appears to be bad, there's always an opportunity to judo roll it to your advantage. So I've never done judo, but my limited understanding is that judo is all about, you use the force of the aggressor to be their downfall. So, if you're dealing with a stakeholder who's, maybe dismissive of machine learning, how can you judo roll that? How can you either, help them to understand it, or, if they're an immovable object, how do you get around them? And I think being positive and finding ways, finding the positive in a situation, the silver linings, is a key thing. And the good news is, as a data science leader, you're incredibly unlucky if there isn't a positive. Whatever the business problem is, there's almost certainly a way data science can help. So it's not like we're in a kind of declining industry, or that, that we're a burden on the business or anything like that. We're incredibly lucky to be working in an area which is, generally positive. People who are against us are in the minority, or they're not on, they're not on the side of history, if you like. They can't point to articles in the Harvard Business Review about why machine learning is a flash in the pan or anything like that. So, be positive for the team, and really try and find the positive way of going forward, and usually you will find it. There's normally a judo role in there some way, and that is your role as a leader, is to find the path through.
And that's some great advice there, Giles. I've really had a great conversation for the last 50 minutes or so. I hope we have you on again on the show soon, because it's been really insightful, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much.